Hey, good morning, and thank you for joining us this Sunday for another edition of the MorningStretch.tv. I'm your host, Tony Herbert, and guess what? We've chosen to repeat a favorite episode, which has received a tremendous amount of positive feedback. Morning Stretch episode number 10, where we had a frank and much-needed discussion and conversation about the negative media images of Black and Latino men in our country. Heck, right here in our own city. Since its original airing on June 17th, we've been bombarded with even more negative images of Black and Latino men in all media, social media, newspapers, magazines, and television. But what's been even more disturbing and damaging, in our opinion, here at the Morning Stretch, is that these negative images have been shared by many of you, which truthfully only contributes to our young people believing those very images are a true and full depiction of the men in our society. Images of the men fighting, being arrested, or being murdered. This only furthers the media's apparent attempt to dash out the light of many Black and Latino men. So in the spirit of the old saying that success breeds repetition, we hope that by repeating this episode of Black and Latino men chopping it up in the barbershop, reminding one another of the positive images and the things that we do, and the vast majority of them being out there doing great things, that we help you have a similarly constructive conversation in your own homes. So enjoy and share the show.
Race and wealth should not be factors in our justice system. It's that clear. We also need discovery reform and speedy trial reform. We need to move cases faster. We have people sitting in jails for years waiting to be heard.
Being in the gang don't make you a criminal.
Hey, good morning. I would like to thank you and our viewers for joining us this Sunday morning for what we at the Morning Stretch feel is one of the most important issues facing our society today, and that is the image of Black and Latino men. We're going to have this important conversation here today at business owner Javier Rodriguez's King of Knockouts Barbershop right here on Castle Hill Avenue in the Boogie Down section of the Bronx. Let's go inside and let's start this very important conversation. Well, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome into the Bronx. Well, welcome me. I'm from Brooklyn, so I'm happy to have this privilege of being up here in the Boogie Down. And just want to give credit to our hospitality host today, Kings of Knockout. Let's give it up for them. Thank them. And also want to welcome Richie Torres, the council member here as well. Give it up for him. Thanks for joining us. As a matter of fact, before we get started, I want to introduce everybody, or better yet, introduce yourselves. And let's start here. And introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from.
Henry Nelson. I'm from Spanish Harlem, for those that don't know, 110th Street, Lexington Avenue. I'm a correction officer, been one for over 20-somewhat years.
I'm Andre Peterson, representing the Borough President's Office. Ruben Diaz Jr., Bronx Father Taking Action. I'm the father of 2 daughters and try to empower fathers and men to be better in their homes, place of worship, and community. I have my own company called the Lazarus Project.
My name is Christian Datris. I'm the president and CEO of Inventive Creative Solutions. It's a company that specializes on advertising and marketing and advisors, different governments, and also the private sector.
Young man.
Yes, my name is Pedro Torres. Grew up Spanish Harlem, 102nd Street up the hill. You had to take, put it this way, you had to drive up the hill. You couldn't never come down on a slide because there was too much snow. And I retired 30 years in the Department of Correction, got a new job, a new career now working for COBA as Rapid Response. And that's what I'm doing now. God bless everyone.
My name is Anton Herbert, son of Tony Herbert. I'm a student and photographer raised in Queens.
You go.
Good morning. My name is William Clements. I'm the retired chief of the New York City Department of Corrections. I grew up in Harlem, New York, 121st, 7th and 8th. After 29 and a half years of service, I retired. 2 daughters, both grown, both educators in the New York City system. Proud to be here. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
See, I got to represent the Brooklyn piece because I ain't heard nothing about Brooklyn real quick. Tony Herbert, Brooklyn, US of A, born and bred, and our special guest.
Richie Torres, city council member from the Bronx. Born and raised in the Bronx. I ran for public office when I was 24. Elected at 25, becoming the youngest elected official in New York City. In my first term, I was the chair of the Public Housing Committee, and now I'm in charge of oversight and investigation.
And you, gentlemen, sir.
I'm Javier Rodriguez. I'm the owner of Kings of Knockout. I had a barber school. I was raised and born in Puerto Rico, and I'm here to help you guys here for whatever you need.
Well, thank you for the hospitality. We appreciate you allowing us to be here. And your awesome staff, you know, for the most part. I know we're taking some money away from them, but we're going to make this quick. So let's have the conversation. I got a young lady that's actually a sister out of Bushwick, Brooklyn. She basically sent this question in. So I have a number of questions from folks who watch the show. First question is, how would you describe the images of Black and Latino men in the media? Are they generally positive or negative, and why? We'll start with you.
You know, I guess it depends on how you see it. But you know, in the Spanish channel, Channel 47, or most of the time in the news the way they make money is by profiling people. And I think most of the time, what sells is selling a bad image of ourselves, right? So most of the time when you see Channel 47, you see something negative about Latinos or blacks in the community, right?
Okay. And let's talk to the young brother real quick. You know, what's your thoughts process? Because normally you guys are the ones that's being targeted, our young brothers and sisters.
Well, I believe it's a matter of how you're raised and what your beliefs are and how the media affects you. So if you watch a lot of TV nowadays, you'll see that it's all about drama and my man and this and getting money and smoking weed and all that stuff. So if no one's ever guided you and no one's ever talked to you and sat you down and said, you know what, this is the right thing to do and this is the wrong thing to do, this is how you want to be perceived and this is how people perceive you, you'll always fall into that trap of, oh, black people are this and black people are that, Latino people this, Latino people are that, and it depends on how you're raised and what you want to stand for and how you want to be perceived. And I don't necessarily believe it's anybody's fault. It's a matter of how we as a community bring people up in our communities and teach them what they need to know.
Got it.
Yeah. Due to that is a lot of our young men don't have positive images to look up to in our communities. They need mentors in our communities. If we bring more mentors in our communities, maybe there would be a positive for them to look up to.
But what happens if the media doesn't depict those positive images
And
they only put the negative?
And that's the reason, because they don't show what we are doing in our communities to help our young men out and the fathers out in our communities.
I completely agree with that.
A lot of the media always focusing on the negative, but not on the positive that's going on in our communities.
Got it. I mean, you got a lot of young folks that come in. What's your thought process?
Yeah, they really need some educations, a place that could be educated a little more, that establish them a little more effort in life. Because I cut a lot of kids here, a lot of young fellas, and they need love. One of the things they need is love. Because sometimes in their house, they're not giving that love that they need. And sometimes they come frustrated into the place. Sometimes people say they feel frustrated, not giving some love, some I hear them, or I listen to them. And that's what they need. They need love and motivation in life. Show them that if I do it, I did it, he did it, you could do it too. Wake up and smell the coffee. That's what I tell them, There's a lot of things you could do in life.
Yeah.
We need careers, help them.
A lot of opportunities.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities. Yeah, we're missing all that.
Richie, you ran as the youngest person in any elected office for the most part here, particularly out of the Bronx, coming from public housing. What were your challenges and what have you, based on the fact that the images that they look at black and brown?
I think when you're a person of color in American society, you're accustomed to being underestimated. But I think over time you teach yourself to thrive on low expectations. Growing up, I would have people tell me, why do you speak white? To which I would respond, I speak better than most white people. Right? I think as a young man of color, I have to project intellectual self-confidence and show that people of color excel not only in athletics, but in academics. And as an elected official, it's important for me to demonstrate that I'm as articulate, as substantive, as hardworking as any elected official in the city. And I'm mindful that I'm a representative of people of color, as an Afro-Latino, that what I do will reflect on the communities that I represent.
Awesome. What's your thoughts with regards to the images that we do see, the negative stereotypes, the deadbeat dad, the brothers that just got out of jail, being celebrated and all that? What's your thought process? Because you do a lot of work with young people.
Well, they shouldn't be celebrated, but that's the issue, is they celebrate them when they do come out, instead of celebrating the ones that's in the neighborhood that's doing the right thing.
Right.
Because you're looking at somebody that, I understand you walk around with your pants hanging down, but nowadays we got to learn to talk to these gentlemen to pull their pants up. Yeah. But a lot of us are scared to talk to them now, to tell them to do the right thing. because the positive images that we're not giving them. Fathers not being in their homes, educating them, or fathers not being part of their education. So that's what I think we have to, as black men and brown men, to talk to our young men as a collective instead of pushing them away.
Anyone can chime in, go ahead.
But I think it's also the community. I grew up in East New York, Brooklyn, and I remember as I was growing up, walking around the neighborhood, everyone would look at me different and say, "Hey, are you gay?" Or like, "Why do you dress like that?" But they didn't understand that I was already working in the city, right? So it's like, how do you put yourself in that gap, and how do you fit in, right? Because then you just look completely different, right? And everyone wants you to be like them. So trying to figure that out yourself in that community is also a huge gap. I remember one of my best friends started working for me, and he's actually a correction officer now, Julius. And he started working for me in the city, and I asked him one day, "Listen, do you mind if maybe you just dress up, because you come to the city where we have a nice office?" So, and he did. And after 1 week, he said, "Christian, it's amazing, but everyone says good morning to me now. Just walking from my home to the train station." So he said, "Christian, people just say, hey, good morning, right? They look at me different." And I said, "Listen, it's just people don't understand it, right? You're a great guy, go to school, but if you dress the way you dress, people just give you a profile. If you dress different, people just give you a different profile of yourself, right?"
Chief, you've seen a whole lot. I mean, you've seen a lot of young brothers and sisters come through the prison system for the most part. What's your thought process with this reality TV stuff and the fact that the internet, for the most part, is contributing to these negative depictions of our community?
Well, in my opinion, like you said, seeing them coming through the system, negativity sells. So the media, especially mainstream media, keep us in a negative light. A testament to my friends in circle, I have a bunch of friends and we're all in the home. So that our kids have positive image and role models to look up into, and that they can look at us. I grew up in a 2-parent household who came from the South, who came to New York to give us a better opportunity. So I disdain when people say we don't have positive role models. We're all here sitting here as black men, men of color, Hispanic men, who are positive role models, and we go to our communities. Just like my church, St. Luke Baptist Church. They brought me in and asked me to give a dissertation or speak to the youth about what do they do when they're stopped by the police. So you give them what you know to be the right thing to do when they're placed in these situations, because the thing to do, we're being attacked and we're being viewed and put out in the public front to be vilified and looked upon, that people are or want to be afraid of us. But we're people who grow up with the same wants and desires as in people of other races. We want to make a better way for our kids, make a better community, have home ownership and all those positive things. And I grew up in the New York school system. I went on to college through athletics, playing sports. So I think most people, when they get the right ideas, or I grew up in PAL, playing for Reese All-Star, Riverside, Gauchos. What happened to all those sports teams and all those outreach programs that they're taking away in our community? So our communities have nowhere to go to. After school, we went to a center. We had study hall, we had things to do. They're taking that from our kids, and now they're building jails and other things that's the only outlet for them. To act like that's where we're supposed to be. I mean, we can get into a long conversation how many of our people are wrongly incarcerated. And they don't even know that when they come to jail, the correction officers are the positive influence instilling things in these inmates' lives. They're probably the only male contact that they have, giving them positive reinforcement, telling them and trying to initiate for them to change their way of life. Saying, if you can do it, if I can do it, you can do it too.
So, I mean, I want everybody to get, particularly with regards to the advent of the rap movies, the rap videos, the TV shows, the reality TV shows that's out here, what have you, and actually adding on to that which Chief just added, are these things really weighing heavy on us? I mean, Richie, you're dealing with a lot of youth in your community.
Yeah.
What do you get the feedback from? Because I know that let me go to this point. We get a lot of our monies, and you heard Chief say, a lot of the monies in our community is pulled out. No programs or whatever the case may be. What do you do? And that is to try to get that money back in when you sit with your colleagues and you guys try to push legislation.
I mean, media images do shape the public's perception of communities of color.
Right.
And if you constantly associate ideas, those associations will take hold in the public mind. So if we come to think of communities of color only in terms of poverty and crime and violence, then
But that's what's being presented.
that's exactly right.
How do we negate
And that will lead to greater investments in
Right,
policing
right.
rather than programs that create more opportunities for young people of color. You know, the greatest lie that we're told as children is that stick and stones might break your bones, but words will never hurt you. That's a lie, right? Images, ideas, and words have consequences because those images infect policing, and how officers police can lead to the killing of young men of color or the over-policing of young men of color. So the images, there's a sense in which the media is complicit in the disinvestment from communities of color and the killing of young men of color at the hands of police.
Interesting. I guess the general question would be, do you think that most men of color are hardworking?
I believe so, and they are. Everybody says Puerto Rican, Spanish, black. We all grew up in the same pot. It's not, and when people tell me like, all right, you're Puerto Rican. No, we all part of black. We're black, Hispanic, whatever. It's one race, really, because we all bleed.
The human race.
The same kind of, right, the human race. We all bleed like everybody else. And that's what we got to get away from. And like when they say, when correction, PD, and so on, that they look at how you dress. It's like the young man just said, it's how you present yourself. How you're well dressed. You'll get up in the morning, you put on a tie, a suit and jacket. They'll tell you good morning, sir. How you doing? God bless you. And that's what we got to look forward. Not that the jeans are hanging down and cursing and all this. And you know what's the other thing that ruins it? It was the internet. Like, you know, the games. Kill this, kill that, kill that nigga.
Yeah.
Kill the cops. Murder the white folks. And you know, that's projects everything is like evil. It's like evil. That's all you're feeding the young kid. Now everybody's home. Nobody's working. Nobody want to work. I can stay in the computer, play game. Let me kill this guy. Let me murder this guy. Whatever. And that's what's going on right now.
Wow. Let me ask this. You know, how do you guys feel that nobody's talking about you, the positive images that are out here? Why are they not discussing you? But we always seem to be able to get these negative stereotypes. What do we have? What are we not doing right?
Well, I think you have one of those things where if we do something good, we have to pay PR companies to actually publish it, right? We need to see how we're gonna sell it, right? We have to pay to get it out there. If you do something bad, it's easier for you to be in the news than if you do something positive, right? So that's one of the things. But it's also how do we profile ourselves? You know, yesterday I was this weekend I was invited to a friend's apartment, and the way he presented me was there was other Latinos there, but he said, "Listen, you guys are really loud, and my friend Christian is Latino, but he's not loud." And I was like, "Wait, what does that mean, right? How does that come to concept, right?" So is it based on education? Is it based on respecting people, or how do you see it? Right? So I think it's how we present ourselves, but also how we work harder to get out of that profile of this is who we are, and you know, this is the way people see us.
The question came down to us identifying with role models. And you guys coming up, was there a role model in your community that impacted who you are today? And if so, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, one of the role models growing up for me was my father. You know, my father and my mother, my parents. Then, like I said, my outlet was athletics, sports. You had the PALs, you had all these things are closing down. You had the Boys Club of America, you had things in outlets. You had, you know, I grew up in Harlem, Charlie Rango. You had politicians and people in your community who were, it was a community. Harlem is not a community anymore. It's, we're getting priced out, or we have already been priced out. And there's been gentrification where they're moving in and moved us out. So, yeah, we had positive images and role models, but like you said, we don't get looked at or looked upon or acknowledged. We don't have a platform, you know, like a LeBron James or some of the greater athletes or the entertainers. They're the only black people who they feel they're not black, they're entertainers. They're not black, they're athletes. They're still black or Hispanic. It's just that they made it and they came from the same means we came from.
So why is it that you think that's the only images they show? The sports figures, the rap artists. Why do you think that is?
It's like those people are gods to them. It's like Michael Jackson. It's like he's theirs. You know, he's not. They don't consider him black or from the black community. They consider him. He's an icon. He's To them, he's God, I guess. But to them, he's not black. It's like they removed that stigma as long as you, but yet you can have a basketball player who parks in a handicap zone who gets beat up by the police and taken to the ground. So it's just that when you get that level of status, they remove that from you. It's like you're theirs. You're not one of us no more.
Right. Anton, you want to say?
In terms of role models, I believe that I believe that young people choose their role models on their own. Like when I was growing up, I was practically given a role model. My father, he instilled all the respect, all the things that I needed to know. But nowadays, with young men of color, especially not growing up with fathers, it's very hard. But I was in the barbershop the other day, much like this one, and the barber, he invites the young kids, he lets them sweep the floor, gives them a couple dollars, this and that. He becomes that role model for them because he knows they don't have parents. They might have not a parent, they might have a father, they might not have somebody they can turn to. And then there's also the teachers. I've seen a couple teachers trying to instill some respect into these young people, telling them pull up their pants, pulling them to the side, talking to them, asking them how their day was. Those are the type of things we need to see more of instead of, loving hip hop and things and things of that stuff on TV. And I constantly hear kids talking about this, how all they want is the new Jordans instead of how they want their degree. And it's funny because, even just young men in the street, I mean, they're older guys, but I call them young men on the street. They're constantly telling kids, pull up your pants, pull up your pants. And I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 of the times, only one kid will do it, and they'll say thank you and they'll walk away. But other than that, these are the type of role models that we need to see more of. But the media will never show that because it doesn't sell to them. It doesn't profit them. So that's the struggle for us, unfortunately.
But it brings it back. My role model is my mother. Right. She got 4 to 5 jobs. Right, when I was growing up. But no one's writing about her, right? No one is writing about those parents in Brooklyn and all this stuff that have like 4 or 5 jobs, or they work all day and night, and they come home and they do it every day, right? So, for example, I go back home to Guatemala and they give me a huge plaque for doing a good job, but no one is saying that to the immigrants, right? And saying, wow, these guys, they went to the other side, they crossed the border, and they did this things for their families, and they have 4 or 5 jobs, and no one is giving them a trophy or anything to say, you know what, because of you guys, we have this new generation.
Well, given the fact that the weight is mostly on the women in our community, as per society believes, and what have you, what are your thought processes? They're saying we're not voting. Men don't go out and vote. We leave that to the women to do it, and we give up our right to have any input because we sit back and what have you. What's your thought process with that? How do we change that dynamic?
As far as what?
About men getting out and exercising the fact people say.
I think it's to Javier's point actually earlier was just a lack of, I think it's a lack of love and support. I think young men of color. I'm a young man of color who had no role models of color in my life. I had no father who was a visible presence in my life. Right? My mother was my foundation. And I will be honest with you, even as a young elected official, I get almost no support from established organizations of color, whether African American or Latino. I very much feel like a loner in American society. In fact, the opposite. I often feel like the established power structures, many of which are run by people of color, often stifle rather than support young talent of color.
Somewhere along the way, we allowed someone to take away our dreams. We used to want to excel. No one wanted to live in poverty. No one wanted to be poor. We wanted to excel, any way positive to excel. And somewhere along the way, we've lost that. From the beginning of different music, the urban music, which started here in the Bronx. The rap music started here in the Bronx. It was all positive at that point. It was an ends to justify the means. And somewhere along the way, as a culture, we've allowed someone to hijack what we've created and used it against us.
That's those record companies that just jumped in and saw the profit over
Yes.
and dehumanizing of our community.
Yes, understand. It's business first above community when you're dealing with a corporation. It always has been that way. And when you go back to PR, PR is powerful. When I can say your name on a wider range of people, I could destroy you or I can make you. That's PR. If I repeat it over and over again, it becomes truth, whether it's a lie or not. That's PR. And it's strategic. And timing is everything. Right now, the time has come that the easier way to feed our community with the housewives of Atlanta, and all that stuff,
Jersey,
it's cheap to make. It is very cheap to make, and above, the profit is high. So if I can give you a minimum quality product and I can get maximum effect out of it, I'm going to continue doing it. You're going to continue doing it. BET at one point, it was just videos. Now it's mostly reality TV, whichever way they want to call it. It's cheap, it's easy to do, and you can kick it out fast as possible. And once again, you're damage your community. But if we allow it to come in and no one says anything about it or question it, the moment that you ask a question, people either get silent or they try to dismiss you. And you become nothing worse than being dismissed by anyone.
I want to go back to this point though real quick. Again, and this is really important for us as men in our society. Our women are voting, but we're not.
But it's based on education, right? Because I think a lot of men in this community just give up, and they don't know what that vote means to them, right? Or what is that vote going to do for them. So it's based on education and how much information they get.
Right.
And if your family ain't a voting family, you don't get out and vote.
Right.
In our community, a lot of people in our homes don't go out and vote because in their family they didn't do it. Or they going out to vote. No, they don't go out to vote.
They weren't pushed to do it.
They wasn't pushed to do it.
Right.
But if it was in your family, you pushed to go out there and vote because it's a part of your family life. Because I take my daughters, sorry young man, but I take my daughters when I go vote, they standing right next to me.
Right.
So they understand how to vote when it's time to vote.
Also, there's a lack of peer-to-peer encouragement and influence. There's not a lot of young black people going out and a lot of young Latino people going out to vote. The other young people don't see that. So if we could get one, maybe we can encourage two. If we could get two, maybe we can encourage three. You see what I'm saying? So if it really comes down to where are the people who are voting? How can we encourage them to want to go out and encourage the other people? So
I think, everybody has valid points. Like in my household, we grew up knowing the history. It's like talking about guys who don't pull their pants up, not knowing the history of that. Our people died for the right to vote. They fought battles for us to have this right. So when you educate your people and know that it's a right, as on a platform, we as minorities never had people like the gentleman sitting here. We've always had to vote for the lesser of the evils.
Right.
But we always got out and we voted.
Well, we were force-fed.
We were force-fed.
We were force-fed
Well put.
politicians, yeah.
Politicians.
They were selected officials, not elected
Right.
officials,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. But it's a platform like you said. When I go vote, it's a family event. Everybody goes to vote. My two daughters, they're of age, and they always watched us vote. And we told them how important your vote is.
Right.
And you give them the history on, in the South. I came from the South, so I know racism plain and in your face.
Right.
People died for this right. How do we just let it go or act like it's not relevant? It is relevant. And now that you're seeing young people coming up who are educated, who are articulate, and who has our best interests and came from the same platform we came from, how do you not rally behind them and support them?
And then we don't have enough young people like city councilmen here that's willing to go out there and vote. We still got people that have been in office for 30 years.
But they're not passing the torch.
They're not passing the
And
torch.
they're not encouraging.
You look like the four horsemen that used to be in Harlem. Rango and them guys, they never passed it down to somebody to come behind them.
But it was the same way with me leaving as the chief. You start grooming your successor the
Right.
day you become the chief. Because you know it's only a temporary time frame. You take the job knowing every day is your last. You serve at the commissioner's pleasure. So do you have that opportunity or time? And a lot of times too, you gotta remember, people don't share knowledge and information. And one thing I learned early on about it, people don't share that knowledge and information because people don't want you to know what they don't know. So when you're up close, like a person who's educated like him, he's gonna know that the person's talking out of both sides of their mouth.
Right. Yeah.
He's gonna be able to understand that quickly. So that's why they may not pass the torch. And he has to figure it out himself.
Now, all you gentlemen are positive, positive examples of positive men. there's no question about that. How was it growing up in your community, and what were some of the challenges? I mean, you're a business owner now. What were your challenges?
Well, I had a big challenge because being like Latino, people look at you differently. When I came here to this area, it was like kind of tough for me, but I showed the way I was raised in Puerto Rico, my parents, they just be united. And I started helping other people. I started with 3 chairs, and I started teaching another one. I have a 4th chair. I ended with 14 chairs in '91. And I showed them that it could be done, united, together, in love and care. That's one of the things and show education. You got to give them some education. If you see something wrong, let them know. Teach them, correct them. Not in a bad attitude. You got to be correct and with love, Always is the love got to be into it. If you don't put love into it, it's a waste of time.
Climbing up the hill, man. How'd that work out?
It was rough up in Spanish Harlem because you had the Italians, you had all race down in Harlem during the time I was growing up. And the thing is that I survived due to the fact is that I worked 2 jobs. I boxed, I was going to turn pro and so on. And I had my mom was a nurse. My mom was a nurse in Puerto Rico. She did overhead. She was taking care of everybody else. She was called the healer from Harlem. She used to heal everybody. You used to come, you didn't have to go to the hospital. She would sew you up or give you some type of medicine, and you was good with that. And that's the way I grew up. And then after that, I got blessed. Went into the Department of Correction, did 30 years, and here I'm at now.
You came down that hill.
It came down that hill. No sled riding down the hill.
We're going to come back with some more. You guys stay tuned. We're going to check out some stuff. We were downtown Brooklyn hanging out, and we got some man on the street kind of conversations with some folks. Let's check that out right here.
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
I don't like the way that they're portraying our men in the media. They are portraying us men, our black men, to be something that they're not.
Black men's character and image been assassinated by Europeans through oppression. That's why you see all the different police brutality all over the country and everything. And unfortunate to say, it's going to continue until we unite as people.
I'm not satisfied with the image that is being portrayed from black or brown men nowadays, because we're being shown as if we're only violent, non-educated, and not family-oriented people, and it's not really the reality out there. I have 2 jobs, I have 2 kids. My kids are going to school, I'm making sure they're fed, they're well educated, and it's not really like I go out there and I'm looking for any trouble or trying to bring that myself to my house or anything, or any of my environment.
In the media, in anything that we do, we're cast as either being bad, drug dealers, gangsters, pimps. We're not family men, or we're not civilized.
Yeah. And just like my husband here, we do a lot in the community, but they don't show that because they need to keep that image for the youth to see that the black men are negative targets.
Media inevitably affects how you think and perceive people. You don't see that kind of example set for yourself. You don't see that you can be a black man and be all other things. So media is important because how can you dream of becoming something if you have never even seen it or conceptualize it?
I said I like it like that.
Welcome back to the Kings of Knockout right here in Castle Hill, the barbershop where everything is going down. We're having some fun up in here. Talking with some very distinguished young brothers who basically sharing their knowledge and input as to what it is to be black and brown in this city, per se. We're also joined by a new guest. Please introduce yourself.
How you doing? I'm Gene Oliver, 28 years new to the Department of Correction, 27 in programs. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I was just telling him I saw his walkout from corrections and whatnot. I actually rather enjoyed it. I wish I was there. We're partying, man. Let me come back on this side real quick, because some of you guys, I wanted to get your input. Living in your neighborhoods. This is another question from his brother out of the Queensbridge section. Living in your neighborhoods growing up, did you see positive male role models? Who were they, and what impact did they have on your life?
Well, in my neighborhood, which was Spanish Harlem, we had few positive male role models, but we had a, how should I say, when I was growing up, we had older people, not that much older than us, probably about 4 or 5 years older than us, but they were I would say, the lower, basically.
Okay.
If we got out of hand, they normally pulled us back. Said, listen, young man, we're not gonna do it this way. We're gonna go this way. If you're getting into a fight, hey, we're gonna stop it, we're gonna do it this way.
Right.
Because sometimes kids get into altercations. They held it and ended right there. And it didn't go no further, it didn't go with me coming back later on or anything like that. You had to stand up for yourself as a man. And
Same question, not to cut you off, same question, but I also want to faction it from this thought process. Our young people are not easy to approach these days in that
No,
manner.
yeah.
So that's definitely a concern. Your input on
That was more of the community, because if you got in trouble on one block, you got the call at home, they knew you got in trouble, so you got a whipping here, then you got a whipping when you got home.
Try that.
Because our community,
yeah.
Because right now, the families don't talk to each other like that.
Right.
You know, if they was talking like that, our community would be a lot better than it is. But right now is our community, this mother over here don't talk to this mother.
Yeah.
This father don't talk to this father. But if we, like back when we was growing up, they knew what was going on in your family. They could call up all the time. Get in trouble on one block, like I said.
Yeah.
Yo, everybody on the block know what happened.
Because
you got a whipping when you got
everybody
home.
had a Miss Minnie, and Miss Minnie was the one picking up the phone saying,
That's right.
Such and such and so they had cutting up a fool, and by the time you got home, you got not one whooping, you got about 3 of them.
Yep. Because they always had somebody looking out the window.
How does the aspects of the administration of child services today affect being able to discipline our young brothers today? I mean, that's some input. I mean, you can't, corporal punishment is not allowed to a degree and what have you. As long as you don't leave any bruises or anything, I just want you to know that. But your thought process, and I mean, you guys passed legislation. How do we get control of our households if we don't have the authority to do so anymore by the way that we were raised and what have you, by the hand?
Look, I feel like you can hold, it's a gray area, right?
Yes.
You want to hold young people accountable for their behavior
Right.
without overstepping the line, right? Without rising to the level of abuse. But I think the problem is a lack of support structure. For young, it was said earlier that young people are failing to vote. Right. The lack of voting is not the problem. The lack of voting is a symptom. It's a symptomatic because we have a society where you have a crisis of young men of color who are disconnected from society. Right? Young men of color are often overrepresented in jails and prisons and underrepresented in schools and elected office because there's a lack of support for young people. Right? If you don't have stability in your education and stability in your health and stability in your housing, then how can you be expected to succeed in American society?
Let me follow that up too. Question. Being one of the quote-unquote youngest politicians out, are young people approaching you? Are they saying, hey, Richie, I want to do like you? Is that happening, or are you creating an atmosphere for something like that to take place?
I mean, there are some young people who take inspiration from my example, but not enough, right? Most of the people who vote are above the age of 60. So we have an older electorate, even though young people have the greatest stake in government and politics. Young people have the least representation, and especially young men of color.
Appreciate that. Since you're the new band on the block, question is two-phase for you. Growing up where you came from, were there role models? Who that role model was, and how has he impacted or she impacted your life?
In my particular neighborhood, we had a lot of role models. Not all of them positive, not all of them good. Especially in the 70s, when you had the media chiming in and blaxploitation films, they started gravitating more to the dark side. So we had a lot in my neighborhood, a lot of hustlers. And they were the ones that were in the community. The working man went to work, came home, and you didn't see him hanging out. But that street dude was always out there with fine cars, fine clothes, giving money away, buying ice cream. So the majority of the little kids aspired to that. It was lucky if you had a parent that shunned you away from that and taught you to go another way. But it was always a constant battle. And sometimes the house was, I was talking to Javier, and it's amazing how with a business, right, family business, your children never want to go into it. But you find a stranger that's not getting that kind of attention at home, and he'll be the one that's more going with you, like you found a young man. And that's pretty amazing, but that goes on a lot. So I was lucky because in my household, They were all working individuals. But those were my role models. But I had to look at the other side. Most of the guys that I grew up with went the other way. So,
That leads me to the thought process of that question. How hard was it for you growing up?
Well, you know, I got to East New York, Brooklyn in the 80s, 1989. So that was a really tough year, right? Because we had the crack epidemic. I come from Guatemala, so I didn't know racism, right? I didn't know what, Puerto Ricans or black meant, right? Back home, we don't understand that. So when I came to East New York, Brooklyn, which is mostly all black, and there was maybe some Puerto Ricans, I didn't know the difference, right? I just walked the streets and people were like, "Oh, you're Puerto Rican?" I'm like, I don't even know what that meant, right? I didn't even know where's Puerto Rico, right? But for some weird reason, the people that really guide me the right way were the drug dealers, right? They were every day at the corners and they look at everything. So when I was about to get jumped, I could remember them walking across the street and saying, "Hey,"
saying that.
They would put their hand on their shoulder and they would walk me home. A lot of them would buy me my breakfast every morning. I would go to this bodega and he would make me my breakfast every morning and he would tell me, go to school, right? Go to school. So, I guess as you grew up, you get a character. I did get into a lot of fights. I became one of the most violent kids in school. But that was because I was like mostly the only Latino and I liked to play basketball. Right? So I was the only Latino with a basketball court, right? But a lot of the influence that I got was mostly from the street people that, but they never got me into anything wrong. They always guided me the right way. And what got me out of Brooklyn was my guidance counselor. He's the one who filled out my application to go to high school in the city.
Let me ask this, Chief, because you touched on it earlier. This is a little off the cuff. And it's really deep for us, per se, because we always hear the conversation, there's no fathers in the house. What's your thought process when you hear that?
My thought process to it is I don't see that because my circle of friends and the people I connect with and the conversations we have in the barbershop, on the street, visiting the old neighborhoods, the fathers are in the household. The fathers are being responsible. The fathers are working. So I'm growing up with my friends and my circles. Everybody's, taking care of their kids. Everybody's working and striving hard, trying to do better. So I see the fathers in the household trying to be better than the previous generation, trying to do better than the previous generation, and trying to put their kids in a light that's better than the light that we came from. So I don't see that. I mostly see people who are in the household. I hear stories, people saying my parents, but I think it's the choices people make that they're not in the household. So.
And it comes down to the issues between the mother, the father, whatever the case may be. I'm like, and my son will tell you real quick, I'm divorced. I got divorced at an early, my son's early age. They were like about 2 or 3 years of age. But we had a strong co-parenting relationship and whatnot.
That co-parenting right now is excellent for me and my wife. We've been separated, but our daughters are A students because we work together. We're not fighting each other, cursing each other out, but we work together to make sure our daughters achieve what they have to achieve. Like now, they're going to Japan. We work it out together for them to go to Japan. I got twin daughters. So it's co-parenting. A lot of our brothers don't believe in co-parenting. They be fighting each other, the woman all the time, cursing them out, but then not working with them in order for their kids to achieve what they need to achieve.
Where do you think that stems from? Poor relationships, initially? The thought process of, okay, you said you weren't going to get pregnant, but you got pregnant, and now I got the responsibility. Now I've got ACS coming at me and whatnot. That creates animosity from from a lot of, feelings I get from folks.
And child support.
And the child support is the biggest issue in our community.
It's amazing because I actually just got divorced. And in this 3 years of me being separated, now I feel I'm definitely a better father, right? And I believe that, I guess when I was home, it was just so toxic that, I used to scream at my kids, so I used to if they didn't eat, I would get upset, right? If they screamed in the car, I would get upset. And, now I'm ashamed of myself. This weekend, I actually apologized to my kids, the oldest being 10, the girl is 8, and my youngest being 4. And I actually apologized to them because I said, there was no reason why, right? There was no point why I should have raised my voice or touched them in any way or form, right? When I explained that to my mom, she didn't get it, right? She was like, well, you know, you did it and it's okay. And I said, no, Mom, because I want my daughter to grow up and to understand that that is not okay, right? So how do we break that thing from people just expecting that it's okay to do it?
Right. And the media thrives on the failures of our relationships. They give it what they feel is a spin to make us look like we're the bad guys, or whatever the case may be. Outside of the thought process, it could just be we fell out of love, or we just don't have a relationship anymore, and we need to go our separate ways. But they make it seem as though we've totally abandoned the household.
And what I like when I go out to teach fathers is the father have to look at being the son's first hero and the daughter's first love. If we don't empower that in our kids, they look at sports figures like you were talking earlier to be their heroes.
Right.
And we have to start stepping up our game to be the heroes to our sons and the first love to our daughters, because I communicate with my daughters. For the past 3 years, I used to take them on trips so we could be able to communicate. This year I went on my own trip for my birthday, so, you know, because they're going to Japan. So, you know, the communication key is a major part of that too. Communicating with our kids and the mother of
my kids. So my son raised his hand.
I was just wanted to add on. I forgot who said it, but basically one of the problems with parents nowadays is they're so young. There's a lot of teen pregnancy. I heard. I might be wrong, but don't quote me on it. But it's not as bad as it used to be. But there's a lot of teen pregnancy now, and the fathers are so young and they're so into this, what the media is portraying to them. They don't know how to be a father, and then, like somebody else said, parents don't talk to each other. So there's no parents out there helping these young people to be a parent, to be a better parent. So all they know is what they see on TV and what their friends are telling them. They're the same age, they don't have kids, so how can they help each other? So it comes back to, you know, peer to peer and person to person. How we have to develop more interpersonal relationships with each other in our community, from black man to black man, from Latino man to black man, from Latino man to Latino man. You understand what I'm saying?
That's why I started my company called the Lazarus Project, empowering fathers and men to be better in their homes, place of worship in the community. Go out and speak to them, empower them, give them the principles on how we need to live as black men and fathers and brown men.
Rich, let me ask you this question. How can we get, and I'm not to put you on the spot, but how can we get the city council to back, you know, these particular programs, and so that we can encourage in our community? What are the process, you know, for something like that? To say, hey, look, we've got a bunch of fathers that want to be fully engaged, but we want to take this on the road, and we want to go into every community to promote positiveness amongst, you know, black and Latino men to our young people. How can we get the support of the council to do something like that?
Look, I mean, the council we have an $89 billion budget, so we certainly have the resources to invest in greater mentoring, or to support fathers, or to ensure that, but what I often find is a lack of political will, is that not everyone understands as keenly as I think I do the need for young people of color to have guidance from positive male role models. I mean, if you're a young person of color who's seeking a sense of belonging, as we all do, and you have no stable family, no community center, no church, no real institution in civil society, then you will have no choice but to turn to a gang as your second family. And that'll entangle you in a life of violence. And so how do we create alternatives to membership in a gang? And I think that's something that we're failing to do as a society.
Yeah, as kids are running to the gangs because that's where they're getting love.
But the trouble with gangs is gangs tend to be disproportionate drivers of gun violence, which plagues communities of color. So I feel like if we can address the problem, the lack of support for young people of color, the lack of mentoring, that will have a real impact in driving down violence in our community.
I have a question. Another thing to that, I'm sorry to cut you off, young man. That's why the borough president started Bronx Father Taking Action.
Borough President
Ruben Diaz Jr. That's why he started the organization I'm the chair of, because he saw fathers need to come together as one. Because his father was with him, and he's with his sons. So that's why he started Bronx Father Taking Action in the borough of the Bronx.
My question was, you were saying that there's a lack of understanding in the city council for there to be mentorship for young black people. And I was just wondering, young black people and young Latino men and of color and stuff like that. So my question was, is it that there is a lack of understanding, or is it that just certain members of the city council, certain members of our city government don't want us to have that? Because there's a serious, and I've heard it said before, young people of color believe that the system is pit against them. So like they're in the council, in the government, they don't want us to succeed, which is why why programs like the one that he runs and that they're trying to create aren't shown to us, aren't directly told to us from the government, from city officials and things like that. So I'm not saying it's necessarily what you would do. I'm just asking, is there any truth to that? Is there any,
I don't, actually. Do I think there's a conspiracy among elected officials or
not necessarily
to disadvantage people of color?
Just remember, that's my son. He has similar questions.
And you ask tough questions, but I'm not clear it makes a difference because it has the effect. So whether it's a conspiracy or not, we know that the system has the effect, regardless of intention, of disadvantaging people of color, right? And that's the difference between. So even if the elected officials are not racist as individuals, we know the institutions to which we all belong are racist. We know those institutions disadvantage people of color, and so that's why I prefer to focus. I don't care what's in your heart. If I have a racist neighbor who uses the N-word, I really don't care. What I do care about is that our schools are failing students of color, or that there's a lack of health care in our communities. I focus on institutional racism.
Good point. Speaking of that, education is a major component in our society because a lot of us, I know a lot of brothers that I grew up with dropped out 10th grade, didn't even get their college degrees or whatever the case may be. Where do we go from there? I mean, how do you value education? Is it important to us, or do we devalue it to some degree?
It's amazing because, so I grew up in Brooklyn, it's New York, but then I went to high school in the city. But in the high school in the city, of course you see less violence, right? I went to a special high school, it's art and design, specializing in arts. Years ago, I went back to Brooklyn and I spoke to one of my friends and I asked him, listen, what happened, right? You had good grades, you're a great student, play basketball. And he said, listen, Christian, the violence just got so much bigger, right? Because in elementary school, you're fighting people your age. In junior high school, you're still fighting people your age. But he said, man, I got to high school, I'm 13 years old, fighting someone who's 18, and these fights in these communities don't stop, right? You fight once and it's like, it goes on for the whole year, right? So he said, listen, either I give up and I quit, or I'm gonna end up dead, right?
Wow.
Which was a sad reality because I think that's what happens in a lot of these communities. Thomas Jefferson, right? And that high school is well known for violence.
Right.
So a lot of people dropped out.
Do any of you feel you were ostracized for wanting to get an education, to better yourselves, to get out of the hood? Anybody?
No, you was mostly encouraged. If you were a student, if you were a good ball player, you were encouraged. Everybody got behind you. It's up to you whether or not you want to pursue. A lot of guys that are very talented with basketball had no discipline. And without discipline, you set yourself up to fail. And which is why you got a bunch of street legends that never seen inside of pro basketball.
Right. A lot of them come out of the rucker,
I have
too.
another issue. What happens as far as this mentioning? When you start out to your child, you're a hero. But there comes a time and age when you don't know nothing. Pop, you don't understand. What do you mean I don't understand? Would something change here? A lot of that has to do with the media, the social media. They're gravitating so much to that social media. That phone is an appendage. And all the information, everything's about that to the degree. Now they're telling me you don't really need college, Dad. What do you mean you don't need college? I did 28 years to afford you the opportunity, and now you're telling me, I don't mind saving the money, but I don't want you to come back down the road.
Right.
You got to be able to take care of yourself. So now we have a generation, and even now I have a daughter that went through college and everything, telling the younger one, no man, stick to your dream, man. That's your dream. And I'm like, what's going on here? It's in me, it's Twilight's Zone, what's going on? So, in relevance to the education part, elementary, you push up to you set it up for them, but what happens when you don't know what you're talking about? There's something new happening here. I can make it this way. What do you do as a parent? I'm lost. This is a 19-year-old kid. Now he's in school, he's registered, he's going, but he ain't really feeling it. I don't want him to go to the military, but I don't want him to be a bum.
Right.
So these are the things that, you could be a good role model. He saw me get up every day. He saw me making it in, sick, what have you. I ain't missed no days of work. And I pride myself that you could afford the right to bang him, but you don't. You go, and I'm showing you, son. You see me get up every day. You see me go in there every day.
That's right.
Now I understand you got another way to do it, and I support that. But you need a plan B. Know that, because if you have a plan B, you take away from your plan A.
Yeah, I like that point about college, and it brings me to the thought process, because I remember, growing up, when brothers come back from jail, it's like a whole celebration.
Meek Mill is out. There he is. He is out of prison. There he is. He just got out of what looks like an Escalade, and he's headed into a chopper. Now, our Sal Palantonio just reported that he did get it confirmed from Sixers PR that Michael Rubin, co-owner of the Sixers, was headed there to pick him up. That's probably his chopper, I would assume.
How do you organize this from the joint?
I seriously doubt he did. Apparently or allegedly or reportedly or maybe confirmed, they are actually headed right now to the arena. And if they get there ahead of the 8 p.m. tip, Meek Mill is going to ring the bell ahead of Game 5 tonight.
Ringing tonight's bell. Welcome home, Meek Mill, supported by managing owner Josh Harris, owner Michael Rubin, and Philly's own Kevin Hart. Once again, give it up for Meek Mill and welcome home!
He's back on the block, and everybody's excited, but nobody's doing that when these college kids come back with a degree. Why do you think that is? Anybody? I mean, it bedazzles me to a great...
You expect that.
It's crazy.
You go to college, you expect them to come back. Matter of fact, you anticipate now, all right, now where we go from here?
Right.
Now we want to, let's get this money. That's what you think about. Whereas a guy that's had it rough all his life, and well, not all his life, but whatever misfortune he had, he's went away, supposed to be, he's in hell. They don't know he's in there getting educated, he's in there eating good, he's in there lifting weights, he's in there making alliances. Then he comes out and it's a celebration. But I can't tell you this, they only celebrate once.
Right.
You do it again, there's no more celebration.
Right.
The third time, they might like be moved away, and you don't even have a forwarding address. So they only celebrate once. And you're right, they do celebrate as opposed to that college kid, but that criminal only gets one celebration. After that, nobody's really blessed with that. That's a whole nother.
You know what? That college is kind of it's easier to celebrate someone that come from jail.
Why?
In certain
Why is
communities. No, I'm saying it's because when someone comes from college, now you see a mirror of who you are. You see a peer. Someone's the same age as me. He got a college degree. I've been standing on the street corner for the last 15 years.
So he becomes jealous.
So now you become jealous. You really
Right.
become jealous.
Right.
It's a jealousy. Because now he's what I could have become.
Right.
So now if I'm throwing a party for him, deep down I'm envious. We got to stop being envious of each other and start lifting each other up. See, that's an example of who I want you to be, son.
Yeah. No, but I think a lot of times it's jealousy, and I'm lucky to have a whole bunch of contacts, and if someone needs a contact, I'm the first one to say, hey, listen, here it goes. People get shocked, right? Because nowadays, everyone that has some type of information tries to hold it here and see how they can make money or how they control it to make something. Instead of saying, you know what, this contact might help you do good. Go ahead, right? So sometimes when I do that, people are like, what do you want? And I'm like, what do you mean what I want? It's okay, right? If that helps you, move on, right? But I think jealousy is one of the biggest issues.
Jealousy of success, which is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, one of the things when I do with my workshops is I go to Hostess College, different places, is I tell them soar with eagles and leave the chickens alone. So what I mean by that is hang with somebody that
wait, say it again. Soar with
eagles and leave the chickens alone, because
Wow.
the chicken's still gonna stand in that corner
Right.
and do nothing. But if you're trying to achieve to get to that next level, you got to hang with people on that level that you are on.
Right.
Instead of hanging with them guys that you used to hang with. So if they coming out, yo, hang with this person. He's gonna go somewhere. That guy gonna stay on that corner that been on the corner for 30 years. It's time to leave him alone and soar with eagles.
That's what I heard. If you hang with broke people, you stay broke, right?
That's right. That's right.
Speaking of broke, let's talk about success real quick. Javier, you've reached a level of success. I mean, where do you go from here? What's next for you?
Well, I've been doing a lot of good things so far. I got the barber shop, I got the barber school. But I'm more focused in the fellas out there, because it's a lot of kids out there that need to be helped and be helping and making united. See, my shop here, everybody's family here. If we don't get along with one, we've got to talk with them and make it happen.
What were the factors that made you successful?
What I think is giving, unite. This together. Together you can go anywhere. Apart, it breaks. Together, we grow. I mean, in 32 years, I started with 1 chair and I ended with 14 chairs. I opened another spot. I opened the barber school. The first barber school in the Bronx is mine, Latino one. It was hard for me, but I did it. And I love to help my guys. And the restaurant, I opened a restaurant too. Why? To keep all the folks together. You know, I like that. I was raised with the family that old family here, this corner, with this corner, we go all together. Eat, watch TV, talk about something like this. We talk, and the kids all used to play dominoes, and they be around other older people, and they learn from them. You know, we're losing that part. It's like you gotta keep your kid next to you to show what's good out there. You know, we're missing that. Be united. Be united is the part to be successful.
Right? How are you celebrating your success right now?
Listen, I'm, one of my employees once asked me, like, Christian, how many times did you fail? Right? And I'm like, listen, I fail every morning, right? It's tough, right? I have 3 companies, and one of them, it came out in the cover of Forbes as one of the most promising companies in the next few years. So it takes a lot of you to actually think how to manage that type of company and how to make it grow the right way. And right now I'm actually writing the whole business plan of that company, and one of the things is how do we stay truthful to ourselves, to our ethics, goals, and our vision of why we opened this company, right? But I restructure and figure myself out every day.
Now, my retirees, I mean, you've reached some level of success. I mean, you've completed some odd years of working for this city. What's next for you?
What's next is I believe in the each one teach one. That's what I do about it. You got to give back. So you have to tap into and make sure the next generation is being educated. You know, not just in my household, but in my communities, the communities I came from. So I got nieces, I got nephews. In fact, I'm having a family reunion next weekend in New York so that they can, to bring them together, to further educate them, because knowledge is power. You know, as Javier said, get together, treat people as family. I also established my own, I have an LLC, so a consultant company. You know, it's a matter of teaching and training. You know, a lot of times you can tap into people and their wealth of knowledge.
Right.
So it's a matter of giving back, expressing. Everybody's not, when you talk about education, everybody's not book smart. So what I try to tell my nephews is, rather than going into formal schooling, take a trade. You know, you could be a plumber, you could be a painter, you could be a barber. You know, how does a man take care of his family? A man doesn't earn a living by his craft.
They took those trades out of our schools. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah.
I went to Westinghouse High School in Brooklyn and whatnot. We had cabinet making, jewelry making, dental. We had all of that stuff. All of that stuff has been yanked out. So now we don't have any opportunities. So, I mean, so I hear what you're saying, man.
It's just like what Javier said. He started the first
barber
school in the Bronx. Right. I tell people that's a very honorable living.
Yeah.
That's a good living, but a lot of people are not motivated because they see the things or the guys in the community that glitter. And then, but you gotta tell them it's a price and cost to everything. Everything comes with repercussions, so. But it's all about now teaching and training, and I mean, most of us, I know myself, I would love to get into a mentoring program, which it was and I was trying to get a PAL center so that I could teach and give back to the youth and educate them, because you always want to say, if I can do it, you can do it. If I came from this, you can do it too.
Right.
Just steer people in the right direction or tap into their talents. Everybody's walking around with a dark gift. It's just you have to find it and bring it out of them.
You know, I think it has a lot to do with dedication, right?
Right.
Because a lot of the times, young people, they look at someone and they're like, oh, he's driving a fancy car, he lives in a nice apartment, but they don't understand the process to get there. They think, oh, you know, this is like something that just popped out of somewhere. It's not.
We got a young person here.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part, started his own business, photography business, and still in college. You want to talk to that?
For me, it's just to keep going, learn as much as I can, figure out what's next, tear down, rebuild. If something's not working, just try to fix it. And eventually, like, I believe it was you, give back. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to help out my friends, bring in new people I've never met before. If somebody's out there struggling, they need a job. Hopefully I can provide that job for them once my business reaches that level of success, like Mr. Javier over there. So that's the goals for me.
You see, everybody talks about the fancy car and all that. It's not what the fancy car is, what you got in your back pocket. And that's what it's what you got in your back pocket. If you ain't got no more than $500, you don't have nothing. I could have a Mercedes out there, but I can't afford the car or whatever. But I could buy the car, but why? Everybody, that the illusion, fine car, fine woman, or what. We could all have that. But it all depends where your mind is stable at. Like, I feed the homeless. I cook, and when I see the homeless, say, hey, here's some food. This guy almost cried. I bring a big bag of food. And like, for real? Yeah, for real. It's for you to eat. You know, people are starving out there, and people fail to realize that. It's not being tough. It's not selling drugs. We all did that. I don't know. You know, a lot of us did that, and we went out in the streets or whatever it was. A lot of us know about the streets. But the thing is that we learn how to survive. And the thing is, survival is the main course. The education is top of the notch. You need that to survive. But the thing is, you got to know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're speaking about, and then don't know how to survive it between yourself and your family, you're not going nowhere. So that fancy car don't mean nothing. It's what you got in your back pocket. And that's what it's all about.
And then I want to close out with Richie on this one.
The principle, we spoke about the principles of being successful is giving. The Lord loves to give forgiving. So that's what I do. I give knowledge, everything I learned. I have 8 grandchildren that they rough, but I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I try to expose them as much as possible while they're young and they're just regular community. You know, the young kids I see, I take the time out. Young man, put your pants up.
Well,
Just history of that.
You're fresh off retirement. Now what?
Right. Well, that's what I did while I was in there. I worked with adolescents.
Okay.
So while I was there, I did that. So stay true to that. And nothing changed. I did it in the street. I was lucky enough to be in a position to do it with the incarcerants, right? To get them to another level, to at least provoke thought. I didn't have them long enough to change them, but I had them long enough to provoke thought. Because every day I went to work and saved one kid, I did what I was put in to do. And that's the way I went through my whole career. You know, I was lucky enough with a lot of mentors that mentored me that showed me another way to do this jail thing.
Right.
Which is why you saw that big walkout.
Yeah.
I gave blood there. I gave everything I had. And it doesn't stop. You know, each and every day. I'm here today because they talking about you. I love to come. Okay. Right? And I'm happy to be amongst my esteemed colleagues here.
You're not retired yet.
No, not retired. I can retire, but I haven't retired yet.
So what's your thought process now to say that you've reached your level of success?
Well, I always thought when you get to the moment that you can retire, that I would retire. Actually, I haven't retired yet. Fortunately enough, we have a new regime that's coming in. We have a new group crop of officers that's coming in.
Right.
And the hardest thing, that's how I learned that there's a big gap. The hardest thing for them to understand that you have to listen. When I first got on the job, I remember there was a big melee, if you will, and I'm busy yelling, you know, and another officer grabbed me by the shoulder and said, listen, stop talking and listen. You can hear every single thing that's going on if you listen. They're gonna tell you everything that you need to know to handle a certain situation. And I had that throughout my whole career. In other words, normally if you're having a bad situation, even out here in the street, if they're yelling, if you listen, you can tell what's going to happen from that one moment to the next. And then you can address that issue, so you could take out the common denominator of the problem.
Right.
And you can separate it. You know, you can have two to fight. If you eliminate one, now he's by himself. Now you could talk to him. You explain certain things to them.
Right.
And you can break it down to them. I'm just trying to get that aspect to the newer crop of officers that's coming up. You could talk to people, but listen to them first.
Passing the torch.
That's it.
He's passing the torch.
Because if someone that feel, I call it the Bill Clinton thing, whether you believed it or not, he seemed like he felt your pain. In other words, it just stopped you for a minute to think. Well, most of the time, our worst mistakes we make, we just didn't think for that 1 second.
Right.
1 second of irrationality, that's what did it. That's what really did it to us. And led us astray or let us make our error or whatever. If we took 1 minute just to think, it'll change pretty much everyone's lives, even those that's incarcerated.
Makes sense. Rich, you've reached a certain level of success thus far. You got elected. Now what do you do?
I would be careful not to use the word success, because I feel like true success means a life well lived.
Right.
One moment you can be an elected official, the next moment you can be homeless. So I think it's too early to tell. But I think at the heart of success is a commitment to excellence, no matter what you do, whether you're in academics or skilled trades. To paraphrase a quote, a society that values good philosophy, or bad philosophy, but devalues good plumbing, will have neither good philosophy nor good plumbing. Right? And we need both, and we need to respect excellence no matter what field you choose. I think a second point, I was watching a favorite film of mine, The Shawshank Redemption, right? And the main character, he said something that stuck with me. He said that, because life can feel like a prison, and there's something in all of us that's yours, that the outside world, can't get to you, that belongs to you. And I think that something is your integrity, it's your core, it's hope, it's the power of your mind. It's like, that's something, because I'm in a business where you're just conditioned to be afraid of everything. I'm supposed to fear the speaker, I'm supposed to fear the mayor, I'm supposed to fear the governor. But I think you have to tell yourself, those people can't take away the core of who I am. So I feel like if you're committed to remaining true to your core and doing the right thing, then success will follow.
That's really good on that note. We're going to come right back on the flip side of this and have a little bit more discussion. We'll do a round robin real quick. I call it the flash round. I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions and what have you. We'll come right back.
We lost Florida. Democrats lost Florida. If African American men had not been disqualified from voting by disproportionate arrests for drugs, disproportionate conviction for drugs, we'd have won Florida in a landslide. You have some southern states where 30% of African American, especially men, can't vote because they have drug felonies.
Welcome back right here at the Kings of Knockout and what have you. Javier, our host, thank you, Javier. I really appreciate you having us here. We've had some interesting dialogue, quite frankly. So I guess the next steps is the question of concern. Where do we go from here? What do we do now to inspire other young brothers to do exactly what we've had the opportunity to do, to have discussion about bringing us together and going forward to be in a position and what have you to lift up our community?
I believe we could start by being there, by showing a mere presence of success, a mere presence of failure. But as long as we keep rising, it's an example that you could fail, but you could come back from it. You don't have to stay in the low. Right. You can always get to the high as long as you keep moving. Every day that you wake up, you can move forward.
Good point.
I think we need to step up as men and fathers to take our community back and represent who we really are, kings that we are. So I think that's what we really need to do, is step up our game and bring it back to our community as one, instead of fighting amongst each other.
I'm going to Rich. Your thoughts?
I feel like many young men of color, I feel the world has let me down and has failed me. And I think it's tempting to be bitter about it. But I feel like rather than feel anger, you have to channel it into something productive. And you have to say to yourself, maybe I've had no mentors in my life, but I'm going to be a mentor to those young people who might have dreams of becoming an elected official. So that's what I would say, is channel whatever anger we feel into productive activity and serve as mentors to those who have the same dreams that we do.
Well, yeah, it's giving back time. I think that's the one thing that we could give most, right? Giving back time and experience of what we're doing. I started doing some of that stuff with high schools.
Up the hill.
I believe to do a march and say we all together, and say we are fathers, we all together, we care about our family, little big picnic, whatever, up in the Bronx, Manhattan, in Brooklyn, and say we are fathers and we are here for our kids and we are here to teach them.
Anto?
I believe we just need to be brothers to one another, the whole community, whether that's your son, whether that's your brother, your sister, whoever it is. It doesn't matter if you're their actual father. If you have advice for them, I say give it. They'll either take it or they'll throw it away, but at least you tried. I believe that's the next step for us. If we could all just come together, then we'll do much better. That's the key thing missing in our community.
Cool. Chief?
Well, I think it's basically just taking opportunity in any forum that you're in to teach, to talk, to educate. I mean, we sit in the barbershop and talk about Cleveland, Golden State. We have conversations and debates about things or programs or good credit and building yourself and taking good job, taking tests, bettering yourself, being able to take care of your family. So any opportunity that you're given, as well as take on the knowledge and keep learning it so that you can teach. But take the opportunity to listen to the youth, understand their concerns, their issues, and what they're faced with, and take it on and educate them from the experience that your viewpoint. But take the opportunity just to talk, teach, and train.
I know that we could have had a conversation about a myriad of things, for the most part. And I thank you guys for taking the time to join us in this brief discussion. And hopefully whatever we've been able to channel through this TV show out to the community and those that are watching actually, creates the opportunity for more dialogue. And we, again, appreciate you, Javier, for having us here. And I thank everybody for tuning in. And matter of fact, just stay tuned. I'll be back with my rant. Thank you. Good job. So there you have it. What a great conversation and exchange over one of the most important topics I can think of covering. I'm not talking about mass incarceration, not talking about deadbeat dads, not talking about police brutality. I'm talking about men of color who get up every day to do their jobs, who take their kids to school, who do the right things day in and day out with no fanfare. Not that they should get a parade for doing the right thing, but in the face of such constant negative imagery of what black and brown men are, we at The Morning Stretch felt it was time to provide a true image of who we are and what we are. They're doing what they're supposed to do. We all are. Different ages, different generations. All have something in common. Love for their God, love for their families, and love for their communities. They are true representations of what men of color are. Not the images you see in the media, but hard-working men who do it every day that no one talks about. Here's to you. So the next time someone tells you there are no good black and or Latino men, look at your garbage man. Look at your barber, your corrections officer, your police officer, your next door neighbor, your brother, your father, your preacher. Or even better yet, save this episode of The Morning Stretch and show this to them to help drown out the negative imagery we're deluded with every single day.
Me personally, I'm really subtle. It's just a thank you is good enough for me. So a whole big party, I would be like, nah, I'm okay, I don't need that. Nobody's ever comfortable where they are. And so as much as I can get a degree, yeah, sure, but I want more. And so it's like a celebration. Why am I celebrating when I haven't reached what I want to reach yet?
Oh, definitely. We play the highest role in it. The way we carry ourselves, the way we dress, the way we speak, it's up to us as black people to change it ourselves.